Hi, my name is Amanda and I'm here to help Fumi. Hola y bienvenidos. En este segmento vamos a hablar de la importancia de la pronunciación de verbos. Bueno, antes de empezar, deseamos explicar que este video, a diferencia de los demás, no se traducirá. La lección seguirá siendo en inglés, ya que estamos aprendiendo a hablar y escuchar en inglés. Sin embargo, ofrecemos apoyo en español en todo momento para ayudar a nuestra audiencia a comprender un poco mejor algunos de los puntos más importantes que están explicando. Have you ever been unsure how to say a word? Were you concerned about the proper pronunciation? Why is pronunciation so important anyway? Well, knowing how to pronounce a word helps to communicate your message clearly. When speaking, it's important to choose our words carefully and pronounce them appropriately. Our friend Fumi needs to talk to her supervisor about a hospital patient, but she isn't sure how to pronounce some words. Nuestra amiga Fumi necesita hablar con su supervisora sobre una paciente del hospital, pero no sabe cómo decir unas palabras en inglés. In the previous video, Fumi asked the patient to explain how they were injured. The patient used several verbs to describe the accident. Do you remember the verbs they used? Let's review them and remember to pay close attention to the pronunciation. Walked, started, slipped, moved, jumped, climbed, rolled, landed, and waited. Notice that each of these words ends in the final ed, but the endings don't all sound the same. Let's listen to the words again. Walked, started, slipped, moved, jumped, climbed, rolled, landed, and waited. Fumi also wondered why the words had the same endings but different ending sounds. Fíjate que estas palabras acaban con ed, pero suenan poco diferente. Fumi también se fijó en esto y tenía preguntas. En inglés, las verbales regulares acaban en ed. For example, the present tense verb, talk, becomes talked. Let's do another example. The word erase becomes erased once you add ed. Now let's talk about the pronunciation rules. There are 3 rules to determine how to pronounce regular verbs in the past tense. This would be a good time to pause the video and grab a pen and paper to take notes. Hay 3 reglas que usaremos para determinar cómo pronunciar verbos en el tiempo pasado. Este sería un buen momento para pausar el video y prepararse para tomar notas. Rule number 1. All present tense regular verbs that end in the d or t sound make a ded or ted final sound when spoken in past tense. For example, the verb fold has a d sound once you add the ed to make it past tense. The pronunciation becomes folded. Here's another example. This time, the verb ends in the final t sound. The verb taste has an e at the end, but it makes a t sound. Now, rule number 1 says that if the present tense verb ends in a d or t sound, then the past tense verb makes a ded or ted sound. This means that the word taste becomes tasted. Now let's move on to rule number 2. Rule number 2 tells us that all voiced final sounds end in the final d sound. First, let's clarify what voice sounds are. The voice sounds are A, E, G, I, J, L, M, N, O, U, Z, W, Y, and Z. Here's a trick to help you remember if a verb ends in a voiced sound. We'll use the word turn in this example. Turn has the final n sound. Now, place your hand on your throat like this and say the word slowly. Turn, turn. Notice you feel a vibration on the final n sound. This tells us that the word turn ends in a final voiced sound. So to make it past tense, you would say turned. And finally, rule number 3. Verbs with an unvoiced final sound are pronounced with a t sound. Now, what are unvoiced sounds? The unvoiced sounds are B, C, F, H, K, P, Q, and X. The trick that we talked about for rule number 2 can also help you to identify unvoiced sounds. Let's try it. Place your hand on your throat and say the word erase. Do you feel a vibration? No, I don't feel one either. This means the word erase ends in a final unvoiced sound. So when we add the ed ending to make the word past tense, it would make a final t sound. Erased. Ahora vamos a ver cómo le va con Fumi. Ella habló con su paciente sobre cómo se había herido y se escribió notas. The patient shared the following words: walked, started, slipped, moved, jumped, climbed, rolled, landed, and waited. Let's practice the first 3 words and apply the rules we just learned. Let's start with walk. What does the word walk end with? Does it end in a final d or t sound? No. Okay, so does the word end in a final voiced sound? Let's use our hand trick to find out. Walk, walk. There's no vibration on the final K. This tells me the word walk ends in an unvoiced sound. That means we use rule number 3, and we should say walked. Now, let's try the second word. Start. Should we use rule 1, 2, or 3? Start. The word makes a final t sound, so no need to do the hand test. We know that it should become started. Now let's do one more. Slip. Slip. Should we use rule 1, 2, or 3? Does slip make a final d or t sound? No. Now let's check to see if it has a final voiced or unvoiced sound. Slip, slip. Nope, no vibration. This means that the word has a final unvoiced sound. So I should say slipped to make it past tense. Great. Vamos a ayudarle a Fumi a descubrir cómo decir los verbos que utilizó el paciente. Hicimos las primeras 3 palabras juntas y ahora le toca a usted con las palabras que quedan. We did the first 3 words together, and it's your turn to do the remaining verbs. Move, jump, climb, roll, land, and wait. Using your notes on the 3 pronunciation rules, determine how each of these words will be pronounced in past tense. First, start by identifying if rule number 1 applies. Does the verb end in a final d or t sound? If so, we use the ted or dead ending. But if the verb doesn't end in a final d or t sound, we move on to the next rules. Pause this video and go through the remaining verbs. Find the ones that have a final d or t sound, and unpause this video when you're finished. Hola! Welcome back. Let's review and see if you were able to find all of the verbs where rule number 1 applies. And again, rule number 1 is all present tense regular verbs that end in the d or t sound make a dead or ted final sound when spoken in past tense. Okay, let's see which words you identified. Did you select landed and waited? Awesome! Now we have 4 verbs left: move, jump, climb, and roll. Let's use rule number 2 to find out if any of these words apply. Our notes say that rule number 2 is for voiced sounds. If the verb ends in a voiced sound, then the past tense verb ending makes a d sound. So let's look at our remaining list of words and determine which one has the voice endings. Move, jump, climb, roll. Use your notes and the hand trick to identify the ending sounds of the present tense form of the verb. Go ahead and pause this video and make a list of verbs that apply to rule number 2. Hola! Welcome back! Let's see which verbs you identified as having voiced ending sounds. Did you select move, climb, and roll? Perfect. When we use the hand trick, we find that each word makes a vibration. So the word move would be pronounced moved in the past tense. The word climb would become climbed, and the word roll becomes rolled. Nice work. Now we have 1 verb left on our list: jump. We know that rule number 1 and 2 don't apply here. What about rule number 3? Right, you've got it. Jump ends in a p sound, which means that we would pronounce it as jumped in the past tense. Keep on practicing the 3 rules of pronunciation for past tense verbs. And remember, use your notes.